warm welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10. I'm Ritvika Gupta. As a lead up to the 10th edition of our awards this year, we are bringing you a very special episode tonight focusing on invaluable leadership lessons shared by some of India's most renowned business experts. We are going to take a look at conversations that we have had on Leaders of Tomorrow over the years, bringing together lessons that will stand the test of time and help entrepreneurs navigate the demands of the new age business environment. Let's first start with the FMCG sector. From the importance of taking risks, finding an innovative idea, to embracing technology, listen into some of the lessons shared by the top leaders of the country.
I think it's very important in business to be able to take risks. And if without taking risks, development is difficult in any business. So I think that's important. But obviously one mustn't go overboard because a lot of companies recently, for example, we've seen going overboard in taking risks and then facing a lot of difficulties.
Okay. So how have you managed then to find that balance? What's helped you?
Well, you look at the situation and you always have certain rules. For example, you must contain your debt equity ratios. You mustn't borrow too much. If you do that, you can get into difficulty. Expansion plans should be carefully worked out. You must have the right people implementing them. That's very important. And especially in a family-owned business like ours is, we have to induct a lot of good professional management.
Innovation has got 2 or 3 dimensions that are important for every entrepreneur. Number one, you have to be very clear that you must have a robust idea. It's not something that your wife likes or your husband likes or your son likes. It has to be standing the test in terms of the consumer insight that you're able to get from it. Number 2, it must have a sustainable, durable value proposition over a period of time. Number 3, you should have a plan on how you're going to use this innovation in order to leverage growth or profitability as the case may be, or both as the case may be. And number 4, you must have persistence. It's, innovations don't work in a day.
The whole ecosystem for entrepreneurship and starting a new business has changed dramatically over a period of time. It has improved a lot. There is still a lot of scope to improve. But our endeavor is to go on making improvements in whatever way we can add value to entrepreneurs. So there are a lot of opportunities arising for new entrepreneurs. And these are out of disruptions in technology, in consumer habits. The whole millennial consumer habits are very, very different compared to our habits. And one has seen the likes of Ola, Oyo capitalizing on that. And we are going to see much more of millennials driving new business opportunities. And the technology disruptions, actually, the number of technologies which are coming into play, whether it is artificial intelligence, robots, digitization, 3D printing, combination of these technologies also are throwing up a lot of newer opportunities. And on top of that, some of the entry barriers which were present earlier in the ecosystem, like if you are an FMCG or if you wanted to launch products, you had to have a very strong distribution network. You had to have a very big advertising budget. All that has gone down because now you can actually launch a product through the e-commerce channel. You don't need to have a distribution network. You don't need big advertising money. You can do digital marketing. So we've seen emergence of many new entrepreneurs in this space. But I'm saying that the environment is providing a lot of opportunities for innovation, for new entrepreneurs to start businesses.
Moving to the finance sector, the broader lessons that we learned from leaders in this segment include having an appropriate capital structure, becoming digitally adoptive, and having the right team. Take a look.
If you are a SME entrepreneur, you need to ensure that you have appropriate capital structure to survive COVID-19 period. If you are heavily leveraged, chances are that you will not survive the current phase and you will not be ready when upturn comes in economy. Second, you'll have to be digitally adaptive. Large companies will not be nimble to adopt to digital ecosystem, and that creates room for niche SME players. So many entrepreneurs have completed their journey of becoming unicorn in the digital eco space. This should be leveraged by all the company. The third and the final thing about entrepreneurs will be to control cost. Apart from appropriate capital structure and leveraging digital ecosystem, controlling cost will define success versus failure. So if you are running a business, ensure that it is digitally adaptive, ensure that it is appropriately funded from capital structuring point of view, and third, ensure that you are controlling cost.
My understanding with India's large population, young population, technology savvy population, most of this wealth that gets created in future will be created by young people who are technology savvy. We must create policies, we must create infrastructure or use infrastructure like BSE to also allow young companies, startups to list, because many times we have been told that a company which is $1 billion valuation is called startup. That is what I call a victory of public relations of those companies over the reason. They put in so much money to call them startups. Startup is somebody who has no money. He has ideas, he has execution, he has some product or some service, and they want to come in. And for me, those startups require incubators, require angel funding, require venture capital funding in a fair way. And if they don't get still those funding, they can always come to public markets. That's why BSE has now created a startup market where you can raise even 1 crore rupees, even 50 lakh rupees. And 7-8 companies have raised that. But my hope is we'll be basically seeing literally millions of such companies coming. Many of them will die. Many of them will go out of business. But the ones which survive and make big, they will ensure that India's young population gets really high-paying jobs. And also they create wealth, which will be in India.
A lot of the success which I have seen around people around me first comes out of real passion and dedication. So whatever you are doing, if you are really passionate about it, if you are really dedicated, if you are really putting the hard work on that, then I think a lot of the battle is won. The second thing is basically having a very good team along with you from an entrepreneur perspective, because you alone cannot do. So you have to have a really good team. And third, you have to choose your business very wisely and be optimistic about it.
Well, it's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10, and on today's episode, we are taking a look at some of the invaluable lessons shared by business icons across industries over the years. Now, over the last decade, we have seen an extraordinary growth of startups and the startup ecosystem. Today, India is home to the third largest startup ecosystem. Their leadership lessons offer some insights for entrepreneurs. Whether it's being fixated on the goal or the need to constantly evolve with the changing times, here are some of the lessons shared by some of the biggest names in the startup world.
There's no formula. No one's going to tell you this is codified and this is the time to quit and this is the time not to quit. Every situation will be unique. And only you will know as an entrepreneur, if you're fundamentally, I think, pragmatic, that it's worth putting in more into this. So I'm obviously very grateful we took those calls at that point of time. But when I look back, the reasons I took that call was, one, the numbers, and I always believed in them, definitely suggested that a little bit more and we could get closer to break even. So I think you've got to believe in those. You can't be such an idealist that you say, forget about the numbers, I'm going to do this anyway. Doesn't make sense because you run out of capital. Secondly, and very importantly, I think you need a fantastic close team. So your senior members have got to be people you can rely on, and they rely on you, and you need each other through those days. That's really, really important. And I think thirdly, it comes down to probably the gut. And they say you have a gut feel because they actually a quarter of the number of neurons we have in our brain, we actually have in our gut. Okay. So when they say gut feel, it actually makes sense. So you'll have a gut feel if you're onto something. You've got to listen to it. And again, that's what I'm saying, only the entrepreneur will know are you onto something or not. So on the balance, I would encourage entrepreneurs, tough times, stretch it out a bit. In India, you can afford to. In India, you can shrink back, you can cut costs, you can go without salaries. And many of us have done that, and you should maybe. Maybe in the US, you can't even do that. The Western world, the treadmill moves very fast. Even rent is so high. So if you can, stretch it out, eke it out a bit, because I think the stamina to do it again is very hard to find. So you can dig into your resources that one time, but if it doesn't work out and you fail, you say, okay, but if you give up, I think you'll anyway hesitate to start again, and you'll probably be harder as an entrepreneur. So I would always encourage folks that, be agile again, put your ear to the ground, be ready to listen to tweaking your business model. So don't be stubborn about your model, but be very fixated about your goal.
Globally, we've seen that small stores have never shut, globally. This fear was there 15 years back, 20 years back when modern trade happened, right? When Food World and Spencer's and Reliance and More and all these people started building stores, people started getting worried, saying what's going to happen to the neighborhood store? The neighborhood stores got better. Those entrepreneurs started becoming better. There is a big need of those stores, right? People still go and buy top-ups there. People still, you will make a long distance travel once or twice a month. You will go to your neighborhood stores more often. So both formats will remain. Market size, as I told you, is so large. There's only 3-4% of that's getting served by by the modern trade segment, and rest of it is still the small mom and pop shops. But if they don't evolve and they don't kind of change the way they do business, then a lot of them might struggle. But the enterprising ones, what they do is they actually start upgrading themselves and start getting better on service. That's what's going to happen in India.
There's a lot of headroom for a lot of verticals, a lot of categories, even in lifestyle, right? I mean, there's a lot of deep user experience led innovations yet to happen in this industry. We are happy to be at the forefront of a lot of these innovations. My message to the entrepreneurs is understand your consumer and start with that problem. Solve a problem. That's how you stay relevant.
Sure.
Don't go after something which is not a problem.
Moving on to the pharma sector, it's largely about challenging the status quo, understanding a person's need with an emphasis on the human connect. Take a look at these meaningful insights.
I do believe that entrepreneurs who actually pick on new and different ideas to build on, I think have a good edge over others. I think, challenging the status quo, constantly seeing how you can differentiate from the others, how you can pull out of the pack. Those are some of the strategies I have used to build the kind of DNA of Biocon.
I think HR is the most important subject in healthcare. In fact, in any business, but a lot in the service industry. And in healthcare, it's a combination of critical talent which translates into life. And so there can first of all be no compromise. So we must choose people with a high capability, skill and knowledge, but we need to match that with people who have a certain human connect. And then it actually moves to the fact that no one serves alone, you serve as a team. So there's a very important and interesting role to play in terms of balancing. And I remember that, we had a certain doctor who was absolutely brilliant, but his communication in the patient room was not so brilliant. And so we actually specifically trained his junior doctor and said, you stay back in the patient room for 5 minutes or 10 minutes after the senior consultant steps out and ensure that you communicate that human touch. And let people understand that he's a great doctor with his heart in the perfect place, but the amount of pain he has seen in terms of patients his self-preservation mechanism makes him not connect so much, and he does it so that he doesn't become too fond of his patients. And he was an oncologist, so he's seen, you know, people lose their lives, and it is very painful because doctors are human beings. They feel too. So I think a lot of HR is in understanding the customer's needs, the individual's capability, and building and balancing a skill.
The reality is that if people want to believe in entrepreneurship, if people want to invest in entrepreneurs, a very defined and successful exit is important. And at what point will you just keep going from one investor taking over another investor's money, right? At some point, a company going public is mass validation of the business model. It gives tremendous credibility to the entrepreneur and to the company. And so I'm a big believer that IPO is a very, very much needed, like you said, fundraising route, or not an end point, but a very good inflection point in an entrepreneur's journey.
And finally, in the IT sector, there is a growing consensus about the role of digital in shaping businesses and opening new opportunities for entrepreneurs. Listen in.
If you look at India and the role of digital and the stage of the economy, the assumption was that a lot of the opportunity was going to be powered by small businesses. That was true in 2019. You know, in many ways, if you look at the marketing platform that Facebook earlier and Meta now has built, it was always solving for small businesses first, because we believe that we had built a platform with the power of personalized advertising that made it easy for businesses of all sizes, especially the small ones, which in its early days tend to be limited in resources, they're frugal in their spend, the ability to target only those customers that they want to, and yet be able to target those customers anywhere in the world, was a superpower that we had and we continue to have. That's why we made the bet 3 years ago. I think to the question, what has changed in the last year, I think the canvas of opportunity has exploded. 2 or 3 things to call out, Sananda. One, companies are a lot more ambitious about building national and global businesses from a very early stage. When you look at timelines, right? I think 10 years ago, you know, most small businesses wanted to see a lot of traction. They wanted to see growth for a while before they would even look at expanding to other states, let alone think of their businesses as global. I think there's a lot more ambition at the moment and a lot more confidence to chase that ambition, where I do think, thanks to digital and platforms like ours, there's comfort that the idea that they have can be relevant for people, not just in their city or in a local community, that it can be relevant for the world. And platforms like us allow businesses to reach that global consumer base pretty quickly. That's one big change that we're seeing. I think the second big change that we're seeing is the desire to build the direct connect with consumers, right? I think we have now given it a label, D2C, direct to consumer. But fundamentally, the confidence that, you know, let's build products and services and be in a position to not just build a consumer brand, but be in a position to have the ability to ship directly to consumers, to have a lot more connect with consumers directly. And I think that's been enabled by the scale of the India internet and platforms like ours. Those are the two big areas where I see a lot of change. The willingness to go global from day one, and in every sector, having a lot more confidence to build affinity and business models going all the way to the last mile.
Now, what does this digital really mean? And there are 2 broad thematics that I think are megatrends of the pandemic, and that are here to stay. They will not go away after the pandemic. The first aspect of that digital megatrend is data and AI-led cloud innovation. Now, data and AI was something that was a nice pilot for most companies 12 months back. It is mainstream today. It has happened in the last 12 months of the pandemic because all of us have been using machine learning and AI modeling to even predict around the virus and the pandemic effects around how we can get our health statistics back on track. Now, just like that, I think in core business also data and AI will become very, very core to everybody going forward and enabled by the cloud. The second major mega trend, which is not spoken about so much, but everybody feels it today, is trust. Now, trust has many dimensions. Privacy is the biggest one of them. We are talking about it a lot today. Is my data my data? Is somebody else looking at that data? And truly, I think the future holds this whole notion of your data is your data. So privacy is a very big part of it. Cybersecurity is a very big part of it. Transparency, accountability, all of that are very, very big parts of trust. Do I trust the technology platform that I'm using? Do I trust the person on the other side? What's behind that facade that maybe as a backdrop of the person when I'm talking to that person? Who else is listening to my conversation, whether physically or virtually? So I think all of those aspects will become very core to how we do our day-to-day work, the way we do our business, the way we interact with each other. So to me, data and AI-led cloud innovation and trust are mega trends that have come to stay. And the future, if you talk about crystal ball gazing, is about how you inherently use these trends to accelerate your business, your enterprise.
Tech is a way of life now. Every business in the world, irrespective of how they like to define themselves, really is a technology business now, right? And earlier we used to struggle to present this proposition, but today we don't struggle anymore because everyone appreciates and understands seeing the level of disruption that's happening in the marketplace. So I would say the biggest area of investment and focus has to be, driving the whole skilling initiative in order to make sure that the Indian talent and the demographic dividend that we have is actually properly used in order to make India great, as well as drive more impact with global companies and their aspirations to become even bigger, even better, and even more responsible, so to speak. The second is appreciating and understanding very well all the new disruptive technology trends that are facing us. And we hear all these buzzwords about AI, ML, we hear about the Internet of Things, cloud, all of these kind of things. For us, all of these are really opportunity areas because they help transform businesses. They help create a completely new journey from a business point of view. And frankly, from a NASSCOM and NASSCOM company's point of view, they create new opportunities of growth.
With that, it's a wrap on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10. We hope you enjoyed the insightful takeaways. Thank you and good night.